Good morning, everyone. It is so good to be with you today on this beautiful Sunday that finally feels like fall. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Nashville. My name is Danielle Garrett. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm serving as your student minister this year. Whoever you are and whatever road has led you here this morning, know that you are welcome here. We are so glad you've come to worship with us. As Unitarian Universalists, we do not share a common creed, but rather covenant together to affirm our interdependence, celebrate our differences, and promote justice. On Sunday mornings, we bring our whole selves, our many names for the divine, and our diverse spiritual paths, and join together in worship. Through joyful music, quiet prayer, and thoughtful words, we seek to honor that which we hold most sacred and affirm our congregation's mission to create community, nurture spiritual growth, and act on our values in the broader world, guided by reason and compassion. I'd like to extend a special welcome to anyone this morning who is visiting for the first time. If you're seeking a spiritual home, we hope that you might find it here. If you're joining us live this morning and feel comfortable, we'd love for you to say hello in the chat so we can welcome you. You can find helpful resources and more information about our congregation by visiting our website at firstuunash.org. You can also feel free to direct message me on Zoom this morning or reach out via my email address, studentmin@thefun.org for more information about the congregation. And I'll also put those email addresses and website in the chat as well. We are so glad you're all with us this morning. Welcome.
Good morning, my name is Julie Grower. My pronouns are she, her. Our opening song lyrics are the title to a Paul Gauguin painting. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? This song has many layers and can be sung in infinite ways. There's no wrong way to sing it, so I hope you'll join our voices from the choir in the singing.
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Mystery, mystery, like where are we going?
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Diane Dowgiert, and my pronouns are she, hers. We begin with words written by Kristen Harper. Each day provides us with an opportunity to love again, to hurt again, to embrace joy, to experience unease, to discover the tragic. Each day provides us with the opportunity to live. This day is no different. This hour no more unique than the last, except maybe today, maybe now, among friends and fellow journeyers, maybe for the first time, maybe silently, we can share ourselves.
Good morning. My name is Bob Day. My pronouns are he and him. The words for the chalice lighting this morning were written by Steve Stock. We light this chalice to celebrate the inherent worth and dignity of every person, to reaffirm the historic pledge of liberal religion, to seek that justice which transcends mere legality and moves toward the resolution of true equality, and to share that love which is ultimately beyond even our cherished reason, that love which unites us.
Good morning. I'm Marguerite Mills, your Director of Lifespan Religious Education, and my pronouns are she, her. Today's story is called The Animal School. It's a fable written by George Revis, who was the assistant superintendent of the Cincinnati Public Schools in the early 1940s. Once upon a time, the animals decided they must do something heroic to meet the problems of a new world, so they organized a school. They had adopted an activity curriculum consisting of running, climbing, swimming, and flying. And to make it easier to administer the curriculum, all the animals took all of the subjects. Now, the duck was excellent in swimming. In fact, he was better than his instructor, but he made only passing grades in flying and was very poor in running. And since he had so much trouble with running, he had to stay after school, and he also had to drop swimming in order to practice running more. Well, this kept up until his poor webbed feet were so badly worn, and he was only average in swimming. But average was acceptable in school, so nobody worried about that, except the duck. The rabbit started at the top of the class in running, but had a nervous breakdown because of so much makeup work in swimming. The squirrel was excellent in climbing until they developed this incredible frustration in flying class, where the teacher made them start from the ground up instead of the treetop down. They also developed a Charlie horse from overexertion, and then got a C in climbing and a D in running. Well, the eagle was a problem child, always in trouble and severely disciplined. In climbing class, he beat everyone to the top of the tree, but he insisted on doing it his own way. In other words, he used his wings. Now, at the end of the year, an abnormal eel that could swim exceedingly well and also run and climb and even fly a little had the highest average and was valedictorian. The prairie dogs stayed out of school altogether, and they fought the tax levy because the administration would not add digging and burrowing to the curriculum. They're prairie dogs. Well, they apprenticed their children to a badger, and later they joined the groundhogs and the gophers to start a successful private school. And so ends our story.
Good morning. My name is Susie Wilcox. My pronouns are she and her, and I am here as your A-Team or Action Team representative. The A-Team is a group of First UU Nash members who are committed to being the link between NOAA and First UU Nash. Nashville Organized for Hope and Action, or NOAA, is just what its name indicates. Groups of committed organizations and congregations who meet monthly. NOAA has 4 specific task forces which also meet monthly. Today is the annual public meeting on Zoom. Let's talk about why the public meeting is important. Mayor Cooper will be there, as well as Metro School Board representative and other elected officials. And why does that matter? Because each of NOAA's task forces will make asks of these officials based on endless hours of research, meetings, and outreach concerning the issues and needs for Nashville to thrive. For example, the Economic Equity and Justice Task Force's requests are asking the mayor to consider supporting a plan to adequately pay support staff, asking the city to change the request for procurements, or RFPs, to give preferences to companies who pay workers adequately and also keep the workers safe, asking if the mayor will consider adding a dashboard to the website that allows the public to see how much government money is spent, thus improving transparency. The Criminal Justice Task Force's request is to ask Mayor Cooper to meet with Taking the Call conference participants, a conference which focuses on alternate responses to individuals experiencing mental health emergencies by the use of mental health professionals rather than police. A large number of Nashville leaders are attending this conference. And not a question, but a survey to gather public input, which will then form the basis for public forums around elections for general session judges concerning cash bail. The Affordable Housing Task Force's request focused on 4 specific questions, all centered on eviction court and what the mayor's plans are for moving forward with specific timelines. And finally, the Education Task Force's requests are that the equity opportunities for advanced placement classes are scrutinized, that the governor reform the Basic Education Plan, or BEP, so that all schools receive adequate funding and equal and adequate funding, and to reinforce the movement towards social emotional learning in schools. This task force has already been instrumental in getting advocacy centers in MNPS. You are probably quite surprised at the breadth and depth of these questions. I know that I was. There is still time to show elected officials that Nashville is interested in seeing the city thrive. By attending today's meeting, you are showing, along with NOAA, the citizens demand accountability. Please register for the public meeting to be held this afternoon at 3 o'clock. Your presence matters, your attendance counts. Last year, First UU Nash had the largest number of attendees. Let's see if we can keep that record. So go to noaatn.org to register, and you can also see testimonials about the importance of today's meeting. We need you. Thank you and be well.
Good morning. My name is Debrina Dills, and I have been a member of First UU for 20 years. I've been asked to give a stewardship testimony today, and each time I'm asked to speak, I wonder, what could I have to say that people would want to hear? And more specifically, why would you want or need to know my reasons for continuing to support this church? The reasons to give and support seem so obvious to me, maybe after all these years, and there are many. Supporting our staff and volunteers, maintaining our physical space, and dare I even say changing and improving those spaces, supporting the many and varied programs and groups of our church community, which have far-reaching impacts on ourselves, our neighbors and neighborhoods, and the wider world. And I'm sure I could list so many more. All I can say is that when my partner Sherry and I first visited and joined this church, all we were looking for was a place for social connection outside of our home and work lives. Through the years in this church community, I've discovered a profound spiritual connection through our music program. Church is music. Music is church for me. I saw a community of people who support our children and our youth and our adults in exploring, questioning, and respecting the many faith traditions through our RE programs, and educating those same folks, us, with the Our Whole Lives or OWL programs. And while my teenage kids choose right now not to participate in the youth groups in church, I still witness the amazing influence this church community, you, have had on me and them. When they speak up for religious tolerance and openness in their after-school activities, or when they support their LGBTQ plus friends by asking for and using their pronouns, their preferred pronouns, like it's no big deal. And why should it be? And so, maybe I did have something I wanted you to hear. I hope something in my testimony resonated with you and inspired or inspires you to start supporting or to continue supporting this church and our community. For me, it's much more than the brick and mortar buildings or the people in them. Our church community is the way I want to be and live in our wider world. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Debrina, and thank you, Susie, for those testimonials. They're such important reminders of why we are together, why we even bother to do this thing that we call church. And I just want you to know that I will be at that NOAA meeting this afternoon, and I encourage you to be there as well. You may know that we share every Sunday's collection with an organization whose work outside of our walls aligns with our values. Our Share the Plate partner for the month of October is Oasis Center, a nationally recognized organization on a mission to help young people in Middle Tennessee move into a happy, healthy, and productive adulthood. You can learn more in the worship portal at firstuunash.org, where you can also find the link to our online donation form. The offering is a sacrament of the Free Church. It is supported by the voluntary generosity of all who join with us. As always, your gifts, like your presence among us, are received with gratitude. Thank you, Halling. We are so blessed by your gifts of music that you offer us each and every Sunday. I invite us now into a spirit of prayer. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, O God of our weary yet still wonderful world. We are here today, separated from each other by distance and time, yet we are here, longing for connection and a sense of hope. Some of us are brokenhearted and exhausted, wondering when life will be normal again, or if it will ever be normal again. Some of us are waiting for the new normal to arrive. Some of us are grieving all that has changed and all that has been lost. Some of us are anticipating new possibilities that lie ahead. We all come yearning for community, yearning for justice and peace, yearning for healing and wholeness for ourselves and each other. Blessed One, who is known by many names and is beyond naming, open us with a spirit of acceptance, that we may allow for each person to be exactly who they are, allowing each person to feel exactly what they feel. Open us with a spirit of hope, that we may rise from the ashes of change with courage enough to meet each new day and do the work of justice. Open us with the spirit of grace, that we may find the forgiveness we seek, that we may be the ones to grant forgiveness where needed. Open us with a spirit of gratitude, that through the offering of thanks, we will find our good hearts ready to receive the abundant blessings of life. In the name of all that is holy, we pray. Amen.
Our reading this morning is titled, Are We Living in a Post-Racial World Yet? By Kalani Kachela. We get good at what we practice. Research now tells us very clearly what distinguishes amateurs from experts. It's the amount of time they spend practicing their craft. To become exceptional, you must do two things. First, you must practice with intention. You have to aim to become very good. If you set out just to know how to do something or do it good enough, then that is how good you will become. To become expert, you have to envision yourself as a master of your craft. Second, you must practice a lot and consistently. Studies show that amateurs practice about 3 times a week for about an hour per sitting. Those who develop into experts put in 3 hours a day, almost 7 days a week. They become consumed with their craft. In addition, there is a magic number. Becoming an expert demands about 10,000 hours of practice. That's 20 hours a week, every week, for about 10 years. The notion of intentional practice also applies to how we become the beloved community. It's not enough to just say that we are post-racial. We have to practice being post-racial. It is said that if you're not on the court, you're not in the game. We have to put in the time on and off the court. Here ends the reading.
The Reverend Kalani Kachela, an African-American Unitarian Universalist minister, asks if we are living in a post-racial world yet. Instead of answering the question directly, He talks about practice, how much practice it takes to become really good at something and how much it takes to become an expert. The implication then is no, we are not living in a post-racial world yet. We have not practiced enough yet. We have not yet put in the intentional hours of practice that it will take to get us there and to keep us there. As we all know, practice means starting where we are. We can only know what we know and have as much skill as we have. Anyone who has ever decided to learn a new skill or improve an existing one knows that mistakes are an inevitable part of the process. Just recall those first attempts at riding a bicycle, and you know this is true. The practice field, then, the court we must play on, must be a grace-filled space, a place where we know we will fall, knowing there are gentle hands ready to help us back up. If we are ever to inhabit a post-racial world, we must first make room for racial and ethnic differences, and this takes practice, intentional practice. Starting where we are means knowing where we've come from. In the practice of making space for racial and ethnic difference, each of us knowing our own racial and ethnic history is where we start. We live in a highly racialized society, even though anthropologists have been telling us since the mid-50s, anthropologists have been telling us that race is a human invention, a social construct with no biological basis. Isabel Wilkerson, in her book Caste, and that's C-A-S-T-E, as in caste system, tells of a conversation that she had with a Nigerian playwright who had come to one of her lectures. Wilkerson quotes the woman as saying, "You know, there are no Black people in Africa. They don't become Black until they go to America or come to the UK." James Baldwin once noted, "No one was white before they came to America." I remember back in my social work days when intake forms had only 3 options for racial identity: Caucasian, Black, or other. I could almost feel the unspoken ouch every time a client of mine would check the other box. No one likes to be considered other. And then, of course, only a small handful of people could honestly claim to be Caucasian with ancestral roots in the Caucasus regions of the countries of Georgia and Russia. Caucasian was just a coded way of saying white. The most recent United States Census officially recognized 5 racial categories: white, Black or African American, Asian American, American Indian / Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian / Pacific Islander, as well as people of 2 or more races. The problem with assigning people to racialized categories is that it works to erase whole portions of our identities, specifically our cultural and ethnic identities. To say that someone is Black or African American misses the fact that they are also Ugandan or Congolese or Nigerian, or with ancestral roots in any of the 54 countries on the African continent. To say someone is Latinx or Hispanic misses the fact that they are also Colombian or Peruvian or Nicaraguan or Mexican, or come from any of the 19 South or Central American countries. To say that someone is Asian American misses the fact that they are also Japanese or Korean or Vietnamese or Chinese, or claim a heritage tied to any of the 50 countries on the Asian continent. To say that someone is Native American misses the fact that they are also Yaqui or Odom or Lakota or Wampanoag, or from one of the 600 tribal nations that existed before the arrival of European colonizers. And to say someone is white misses the fact that they are also Czech or Polish or French or Swede, or claim ancestry related to any of the 44 countries that make up Europe. The 5 racial categories named in the US Census entirely leave out people who are Persian or Arab, or those who claim the subcontinent of India as their ancestral home. This whole exercise of trying to put people into categories and boxes reminds me of that little ditty from Sesame Street. One of these things is not like the other. One of these things just doesn't belong. Our Unitarian Universalist faith teaches something different. We teach acceptance of one another, that each person has inherent worth and dignity, and that we are all connected to each other in an interdependent web of existence. The racialization of society affects us all, no matter which racial identity we've been assigned, though the consequences are far from equal, with the far more oppressive consequences falling on people whose skin color is Black or brown. If we're to practice what it takes to get us to a post-racial existence, each of us needs to know who we are and where we came from. Each of us needs to know the ethnic and cultural influences that shaped our attitudes and beliefs about the world and our place in it. My parents were first and second generation Americans. They both grew up in Norwegian-speaking homes. Their Norwegian identity was important to them, an importance they worked to instill in me and my siblings. So strong was that Norwegian identity that when my aunt married a man of Polish heritage, the family considered it a mixed marriage. In my house, it was Swedes and Finns and Danes who were deemed other, and we knew that by the jokes we told about them. I don't tell those jokes anymore. I grew up thinking of myself first as Norwegian, even though I had never been to Norway, and second as Coloradoan, because being a native-born Coloradoan carried a certain amount of cachet and a feeling of a certain sense of superiority. I only had a vague sense of myself as an American. That changed when I was a middle-aged adult, when I took a cross-country trip, coast to coast, driving myself from Berkeley, California, where I attended seminary, to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, to begin my ministerial internship. It was then that I began to appreciate the vast geographical differences of the land and the cultural differences of the people who inhabit this place we call the United States of America. To say that we are all American misses the fact that we are also Westerners and Midwesterners and Southerners and Appalachians and New Englanders. Barbecue is not the same in Kansas City as it is in Nashville. Y'all and youans are different ways of saying the same thing depending on where you grew up. An idea in the West is an idea in New England. Midwestern nice is similar to, but different from Southern hospitality. Americans in the United States are not all the same. Our differences matter. It's only been in the last few years that I've begun to seriously think of myself as white, and have begun to unpack all the privileges that come with being racialized as white, and how those privileges can be used to either uphold or dismantle what Elizabeth Wilkerson sees as an American caste system. She says that race is what we can see, the physical traits that have been given arbitrary meaning and have become shorthand for who a person is. Caste is the powerful infrastructure that holds each group in its place. To practice what it will take to live in a post-racial world means making room for all of our racial and ethnic and cultural differences, spaces of grace for bumping up against our differences, for exploring who we are and where we came from, for making mistakes as we learn about ourselves and each other, spaces of grace for being lifted up after we fall, being forgiven when we fail, making amends when we cause harm. Spaces of grace for our perfectly imperfect humanity, spaces of belonging, being fully who we are while striving to become the beloved community we dream of. For all our differences, we do share a common humanity. Some scientists now say that the world's 6,000 modern languages can be traced back at least 50 or maybe even 70,000 years to a single mother tongue, an ancestral tongue spoken in Africa. Some scientists theorize that everyone alive today shares mitochondrial DNA, the DNA passed on by our mothers, with a single African ancestor living some 200,000 years ago, a mitochondrial Eve, not in the sense of being the first female of the human species, but the one to whom all of us alive today are related. I hold out to you that there is something in us that knows how to live in a post-racial world. It's coded in our ancestral DNA, traced back to a time before the human invention of race. Though our common humanity comes from the same root, we have grown to be different from each other in many ways, a diversity that can be beautiful and challenging at the same time. With intentional practice, we will become more skilled at making space for the grace that allows us all to be different and for all to belong. May it be so. May we make it so through our living.
Our closing song today was written in honor of First Parish Concord's 2002 pilgrimage to their partnership congregation in Transylvania. Seke Aldosh is a traditional Hungarian blessing and is a partner song in English and Hungarian. And I'll add that I'm part Hungarian, so that means a lot to me and my background. I hope you'll join me in the singing.
is faith, there is love. Where there is love, there is peace. Where there is peace, there is blessing. Where there is blessing, there is God. Where there is God, there is no need. Oh, there is faith, there is love. For center is there, for space. Oh, where there is peace, there is blossom. Oh, where there is blessing, there is Easter. Oh, Easter is love, there is no
The words for the challenge extinguishing were written by Elizabeth Sell Jones. Please join me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I leave you today with words that were written by Orlando Brugnola. As we move through life, finding ourselves, always newly wise and newly foolish, we ask that our mistakes be small and not hurtful. We ask that as we gain experience, we do not forget our innocence, for they are both part of the whole. This service has ended. May our service to the world continue renewed. Go in peace, go in love.